Mazes and Monsters was released by CBS in the early 80s, seemingly as an anti-wargaming PSA carefully disguised as a made-for-TV movie. It was based on a book that was written by some lady named Rona Jaffe and is loosely based on a true-life story of a Michigan State student's sudden disappearance and botched suicide attempt, allegedly from acting out his fantasies experienced whilst playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Maybe it was from that Oregon game earlier this year.
Naturally, the story was greatly exaggerated, and though he would ultimately commit suicide years after, it was later found to have nothing to do with D&D. We could just end the story right there, but of course, there was quite a buzz for the hoax, and sensationalized or not, the book and the film came out right in the middle of a very tumultuous time for tabletop role-playing games. Already there had been a growing outcry amongst conservative religious folk and station-wagoning moms across the country that games such as D&D promoted devil worship, and was blamed for luring the youth of America's precious little minds away from working at the local malt shop. The year after the movie was released, outspoken D&D hater Patricia Pulling, yeah, look at that, went as far as to create the anti-group BADD, bad, bothered about Dungeons and Dragons. You know, not mad, just bothered. Like a mosquito bite or jock itch. Shouldn't it have been called baddid? I
don't fucking know.
At least that's what the name would lead you to believe. Just bothered. But it actually got a whole lot worse than that. In an actually published article in a scholarly journal for religion and culture at the University of Saskatchewan. That's right, motherfucker. We're getting deep into our MLA handbooks here. BAD actually defined D&D as this: a fantasy role-playing game which uses demonology, witchcraft, voodoo, murder, rape, blasphemy, suicide, assassination, insanity, sex perversion.
That's the only way some of these motherfuckers get laid.
Homosexuality, prostitution, satanic type of rituals, gambling, barbarism, cannibalism, sadism.
If you ain't got no money to buy all the shit, it's minimalism.
Desecration, demon summoning, necromaniacs, divination, and other teachings. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not saying those things don't exist in the game, but it is just a game. It's a fantasy with no basis in reality. Christian devils and God have nothing to do with it. Besides, has anyone actually gone out to the Waffle House after an all-nighter of rolling it up to have sex with the waitress, rape the male cook next, throw money at him, and eat him while summoning an undead blood-breathing hippogriff, only to take Polaroids of the entire thing? I'm actually trying to figure out which is more evil here. A role-playing game played by zitty-faced fat college kids eating Cheetos and Sundrop, or the maniacal scheming bitch that managed to have such an enhanced knowledge in every form of every malevolent genre of activity known to man to know that this embodied all of them.
It's next to the fucking Monopoly, for Christ's sake.
But Jaffe decided it best to add a few new symptoms to that list: mental illness, schizophrenia, and multiple fucking personality disorder. And just to show you how quick she was to jump on board the hate train, Jaffe reportedly wrote her entire novel in less than a week to have it published as quickly as possible. Not because she believed in the cause, oh no, because she was afraid that some other author might beat her to the punch in exploiting and fictionalizing a Michigan State student's death. Hoax. It didn't really happen.
Okay, I'm gonna use my improved initiative on the movie rights check.
But anywho, enough with the background info. Let's get on to this stupid-ass movie. First off, it centers around 4 college kids played by relatively unknown actors of the time. The female lead was played by Wendy Crewson, better known as the movie's ass, considering how much she would end up being passed around the campfire by all the male characters, if you know what I'm saying. Out of the other 2 supporting characters, she's the only one that went on to have any moderate success on the big screen, like playing the mom in The Good Son, and being in the Santa Claus movies, ooh. The other 2 dudes pretty much stuck to TV and not much else before their careers of bit part acting fell by the wayside. But there wasn't 3 kids, I said there was 4. The 4th kid... That's right, motherfucker. Tom Hanks is the crazy kid. Before he was saving Private Ryan, he was saving the goddamn princess. But only in his mind. So the story starts out with a bunch of cops and reporters swarming around a cave where a kid has supposedly disappeared, echoing the reported true story of the real missing teenager. In reality, James Egbert,
That's the name of the dumb kid, by the way.
did actually leave a suicide note and bunked off to the old steam tunnels of his dorm building to suck down Quaaludes in an attempt to kill himself. It didn't work though, and he woke up the next morning and ended up hiding in a friend's house instead.
There's that quality Big Ten education game.
But by then, the local media, whose reports Jaffe based her story off of, had jumped all over way too soon and wrongly blamed the disappearance and possible death on Dungeons and Dragons. So that's where we are here. An old reporter guy who looks to be the perfect expert candidate to explain wargaming to 80s moms around the country, I might add, tells us right from the get-go what Mazes and Monsters is all about and the terrors that it can unleash. He even calls it a psychodrama. Where people act out the problems of their real lives in a fantasy world created in their own minds. Well, so then, buddy, if this means if I'm worried about my dishwasher getting fixed in real life, is it going to spill over into my level 7 fighter Graknor's daily issues in the game?
Yes, young Graknor, you must find Lord Warden Maytag's key of magical reparation, and all shall be well for your patronship.
After that's over, we jump back 6 months and start to meet the characters. First with this weird kid that always has a dumbass hat on. If you had followed Egbert's story on the news at the time, you would have been led to believe that this is the kid that does himself in after going crazy. Because like Egbert, he's supposed to be some kind of 16-year-old super prodigy smart kid gimmick. We first get introduced to him by his mom, showing off the room she decorated for him, which looks like grid paper. JJ, his name is, gets all whiny and starts to scream at her for how much he hates it. What the fuck, are you kidding me? If one were trying to convince an audience that this little weirdo was all about some table wars, wouldn't a fucking white and black grid wallpapered room make this little asshole feel right at home? He should be the happiest little dungeoneer in the world, but no, he hates it. Then we get to the ass of the story. She apparently has problems too, one of which is that she's 6 feet taller than her mother. She's also got a shitty stepmom that has apparently ruined her dad, but we never get to see them.
Keep that in mind for later.
And we also get to see the pretty boy, Daniel, who, suffice to say, looks a lot more like Johnny, and he's got shitty parents too. When we finally get to see Tom Hanks' character, Robbie, he's being dumped off at a new school, supposedly, by his drunk mom and overtly strict but limp noodle of a dad.
We are still a family.
I hate it when you drink.
What is the deal with the parents in this movie? For a film and a social movement that's all about putting the blame on a game and the kids that play it for their alleged turns to deviancy, there sure are some grade A role models virtuously guiding these young impressionable children throughout their lives. Don't blame them. No, they can't be the problem. Nope, let's blame this fat guy and his devil math. But anyway, his dad and his mom leave him with a warning not to play that awful... Or wait, maybe it should be something like,
Do not play that awful game again.
I wish it was like that. Anywho, not to play that awful game again, and instead focus on his schoolwork. Ooh, maybe this is some sort of problem for Robbie. Great parroting, Pops. Maybe you should have dropped the hammer on him the first time he wigged out and killed all his classmates for thinking they were hordes of kobolds. So this university is also the choice school for all the other degenerates in this movie, who we all find out are part of the same avid Mazes and Monsters troupe, but are in desperate need of a fourth player. How convenient.
So, what happened to the other guy?
Good thing for them, Tom Mason just showed up to campus, and the ass does a little investigating and finds out that the new kid can play the game too. The dialogue when Tom Hanks and the ass are talking about the game is laughable.
A game called Mazes and Monsters, a little too much.
You're kidding. What level?
Ninth level.
So am I.
Oh.
Isn't it wonderful to be finally creating your own scenarios?
Yeah, and your own fantasies, too.
We all know that Tom Hanks is a good actor, but as sincere as he tries to be, it doesn't help the fact that not a soul on this production team knew the first thing about what an RPG was. Anyone that has played any game knows that these guys have no idea what they're talking about. And I mean any game, not just D&D. Foursquare players can tell they don't know shit about the war games. The preppy kid walks up with a fucking Pinot Noir in his hand, and then proceeds to ask Tom Hanks about a tabletop war game in the same manner that a guy at a country club asks the new chap what his handicap is.
Carruthers, you old scallywag piece of dog shit.
And while we're at it, let's go ahead and point out the elephant in the room. Does this guy look like he would play Dungeons and Dragons.
Throw the stereotypes out the window. I'm calling the ball, motherfucker.
Weird hat kid, yeah, I see it. The ass, it's a stretch, but who knows, maybe. But this fucking guy? No, he should be fighting in karate tournaments, not wasting his time sitting at a fucking table behind a rinky-dink cardboard castle. But that doesn't stop Goof Patrol 1, as they all excitedly gang up on him and ask Robbie just to play one campaign with
It's
him.
like they're trying to get him to do some drugs and crack and stuff.
And then if he didn't like it, that he could drop out. You know, never mind that one campaign of D&D could potentially last years. So he's vehemently reluctant for about 4 seconds before he painfully agrees after not so subtly stating his intentions of putting it to the movie's ass. And finally, we are off to the war-torn medieval races.
At least you think so, but then they fuck it all up again.
The very next scene transitions into a montage of introducing the game of Mazes and Monsters whilst showing the blossoming affection between the ass and Robbie. But who gives a shit about the love story when holy fuck, what the hell is going on that table? Did JJ's grandmother crochet the map for them? Why is it so damn dark? Don't they have to read and write and shit? Grandma Hatz's map's gonna catch fire. Now let me stop right here and come clean. My base D&D knowledge begins with the 3rd edition, and I'll be honest. But is this a proper representation of how the game was played before then? Starting to notice a little theme here. Where are the fucking dice? Where are the dice? Zapka shows us the dice, but then no dice. How can you play a game with nothing to roll for yourself? Fucking Hats dude dies halfway through the movie, and he doesn't even get a saving throw. Johnny over there just is like, don't hurt your dad. What the fuck is going on here? Not a single fucking roll to be found in any of the game scenes in any of the movie. Not until they get to the cave about halfway through where it's like someone on set suddenly remembered, oh shit, we gotta have dice. So Dumbhats rolls the dice once and then immediately gets an outcome that would progress the story. How convenient again. Common sense would tell you that if you're going to condemn something to the hells from whence it came, you do a little research about it first to see what the point of it all is. Well, now that I think about it, that's hardly ever the case, is it? They didn't have a clue. If you are basing a movie on a book that's based on a true event, blaming a game for all the trouble in the world in a righteous effort to warn others, you would probably want to make it as true to life as possible, wouldn't you? That's what a PSA is. To inform/scare the shit out of you, to convince you to change your way of thinking to someone else's. The damn thing was on cable TV with the intent that everyone in the world could see it. But when the end result is the close-ups of notebooks looking like a cross between advanced trigonometry, a Salvador Dali painting, a bunch of random scribbles, and John Madden's playbook, then you have nothing that resembles anything this side of D&D. But oh wait, this isn't D&D, is it? No, this is Mazes and Monsters.
It's totally different.
Bullshit. The filmmakers and the writers actually thought that this was D&D. Don't believe me? According to IMDb, CBS's original title for the movie was...
Wait for it.
Dungeons and Dragons. And they only changed it in fear of being sued by Gary Gygax himself. I guess that's why we never hear the game referred to as M&M in the movie either. Oh wait, they probably have another problem if they did that, wouldn't they? Fuck it, I'm skipping ahead now. There's a bunch of boring long scenes about Robbie putting it to the ass just like he said he was gonna. Zapka's all lamentful about how he makes out with too many girls and gets too much strange and just longs for a real girlfriend, all the poor bastard. And Bear Brian over there is getting pissed off because he's lonely and bored with playing just old regular Mazes and Monsters and confides in his pet bird about killing himself in a cave.
Well, here we go. He's gonna do it. Oh, fuck. He changed his mind. Pissant.
No, instead of doing us all the favor, he decides that we've got to kick up the nerddom a notch, so he proposes the group play a game of real Mazes and Monsters in a cave with creepy skeletons from the science labs and costumes he pilfers from the theater department. That's right, kids, we're cranking up the dork dial from tabletop to LARP faster than you can say Mordenkainen's magical watchdog. Hey, wait, is that a real attack? Is that a real thing?
Anyone?
The scenes in the cave are just as dumb, and the acting is about as laughable as a 1982 movie about people LARPing can get.
They are ancient writings of my people. I learned them as a child.
They try to be suspenseful, what with the tacky knockoff chiller music and all, but whatever tension is lost to nothing more than a bunch of scenes of 4 douchebags walking around quietly in the dark. They also have that shitty 70s TV thing going on. Whenever the light is in front of the camera, a little floating orb pops up on the reverse and flip side of the screen because of the cheap-ass lenses they use. It's pretty distracting. Dumb Hats does the aforementioned one roll to start a monster encounter, and this is where things start getting hairy for our heroes. Robbie begins to flip out and inexplicably starts to hallucinate that he's seeing a real monster attacking him.
Looks like Mantar.
It's pretty jarring considering the DM screaming monster in the back of a cave is what starts Robbie's mind going apeshit in a descent to madness when the real creepy skeleton that suddenly dropped in on them from above just 5 minutes before did absolutely nothing.
Beware of the sacrilege.
This triggers everything else that happens in the rest of the movie, and it becomes evident just as soon as they leave the caves. The movie's ass delivers the single-handedly worst line with the most tasteless delivery in the history of cinema, and I am not exaggerating. I don't want to spoil it. You just have to see it for yourself and cringe on your own. But Robbie starts wigging out and acting weird and fantasizing even more, and he starts to believe that he is his game dude. So much that he breaks up with the ass because he's supposed to be a paladin and he can't touch the flesh of a woman.
At least he's sticking to his alignment, though, am I right?
But don't worry about her. She falls in love with Zapka in the very next scene. That's right. The very next scene.
Tooted and booted.
Meanwhile, Robbie's trying to reunite with something called the Great Hall, his mind's representation of his dead brother or something.
They might have talked about that shit before in the beginning of the movie, but I don't fucking remember.
So to make a long story short, he disappears one day out of the blue, and we're back at the beginning of the movie with the cops and the reporters. And then all of a sudden, it washes over you with a horrible realization that after all of this shit,
we're only halfway done with the movie.
Thankfully, the last 50 minutes of a 140-minute film is literally Tom Hanks wandering around New York, which is where Robbie, or Pardue, I guess I should say,
You better not be violating decorum.
ends up in his search for the 2 towers. No, not those. Yeah, those.
Of course fucking those.
His dumb friends, of course, can't find him, not until he for real stabs a mugger that he mistakes for another monster and then goes out and calls the ass from a payphone to cry about it. And I say another monster loosely because it's the exact same damn one he killed in the caves earlier.
Well, at least Mantar got another booking out of it. What the fuck did JJ do after this movie?
So while Forrest has snapped back to reality for a second, it isn't long before he starts doing it again like 2 minutes later, talking to some homeless man who tells him how to get to the 2 towers.
Perhaps you can help me. I am in search of the Great Hall.
Beats me, pal.
And the 2 towers?
Yeah, I know those.
This is actually the funniest scene in the movie. The homeless guy is like the voice of the viewer as he unknowingly plays along with Robbie's delusions, the whole time looking at him with that, and I thought I had a fucking bad look on his face.
There's no reason to fear me. I am Pardue. I am a holy man.
I'm the King of France.
Your Majesty.
His stupid friends finally figure out what the 2 towers are and arrive just in the nick of time before Robbie the Paladin hurls himself over the side, proclaiming he's gonna fly.
You can't. It's a trap.
I have spells. I'm going to fly.
I believe in you, Robbie. I have to say, the filmmakers had a lot of confidence to film these 3 idiots near the edge of the tallest building in New York.
It was their careers that decided to fly.
But for as dumb as they are, they convince him that it's only just a game, and Tom Hanks does for the first time what Tom Hanks manages to do best.
Cry at the end of every fucking movie he's in.
So after 3 months, and yes, I'm rushing, everything settles down and the dummies are in a car reminiscing about all that has happened to them. And the ass announces to everyone that she's gonna write a novel? A novel, you say? How intriguing. Why, whatever could it be about? But of course, mazes and monsters. Are they trying to allude that the ass is being Rona Jaffe herself? After all, when you think about it,
Remember that stuff I told you to remember?
she is the only character we see throughout the entire movie whose problems are never thrust upon us on screen. What the fuck does this girl have to worry about throughout the duration of this movie? Do I want to fuck this guy? Sure. Do I want to fuck him now? Nah, he broke up. But who cares? I'll fuck this guy now. He's a karate champion after all. Meanwhile, we get to see everyone else's shitty laundry in the dirtiest details as possible. Shitty school, shitty living conditions, shitty schizophrenia, and most of all, shitty parenting.
Shitty!
We never even get to see the shitty dad or the shitty stepmom she vaguely alludes to in the beginning of the movie. We just see her real mom, and they both just seemed as normal and chipper as can be. Supportive, caring, and the best of chums ever. All of her troubles just a passing bit of dialogue that is never heard of again. The only thing that she comes off of having a sense of actually worrying about is whether or not they can find a fourth person to play.
It's a hard knock life, I tell ya.
But now she's gonna go write about how all her friends are degenerates for playing some dumb game that nearly killed her ex-boyfriend.
That should make these two feel great, shouldn't it?
Apparently it does, because she's got dumb hats as full-ass blessing for some reason.
I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get the monster manual. I'm gonna get...
He even tells her that it's going to be a bestseller. Fuck you, Jaffe, you arrogant mongrel.
And fuck you, ass, for trying to live it out.
Fuck you too, Hats, for encouraging it. Zapka, you're cool with me.
You have a problem with that?
Anyway, the reason why they're in the car is because they're on their way to see Robbie at his parents' house and meet his mom. You remember, the overbearing lush from the beginning of the movie? Well, guess what? Now she's a mild-mannered, courteous mother and the victim of the bastard child's downward spiral.
Naturally.
Robbie is still kind of acting crazy in his little Padu baby shorts, and still talks to the other guys as though they're their game characters. Then, going against all forms of professionally trained medical intervention pertaining to the mentally ill, this trio of miscreants indulge in his fantasy by playing the game one last time with him as they head off and explore the vast realms Tom Hanks illustrates for them in the way only Tom Hanks can. And finally, mercifully, this one's over. You know, in those last few moments watching Robbie recount his harrowing tales as though he was Pardue the Paladin, all the battles he's waged and adventures he's gone on, describing in intricate details the lengths and breadths of a magical kingdom that is his parents' backyard, it really defeats the purpose of the entire movie. He's so sincere and trying so hard to salvage anything he can out of this movie to land some sort of gig after this. But for all his delusional ramblings, it really makes you want to see what he's talking about, to go on those adventures. I want to see that movie.
I'm tired of this one. I've been talking about it for like 22 minutes or something.
To hell with these three guys and their hackenite ass problems. This guy literally is inviting us into a mystical world of wonder and to the unknown, while these assholes are standing there acting like it's the worst thing ever. And Robbie needs to quit doing this to himself. But then again, that's what this whole movie's moral is, isn't it?
Never ever use your imagination ever, because you could go crazy, die. Or just throw your acting career off the top of the World Trade Center.
But the only fucking thing that semi-holds any form of attention that this movie can create requires you to do just that. Use your imagination. I feel so sorry for you, Tom Hanks. You tried your very best to get me through this shit and make it believable for me. But I feel that this was ordained from the beginning to be one boat, Captain, that you should have just left for the Somalians. So there you have it, mazes and monsters. Thankfully for Tom, this movie has been more or less lost to time as far as the public eye goes, and didn't quite have the impact that those that were bothered might have intended. Now it's nothing more than merely an anecdotal inside joke to those crowded around the tabletops in dingy basements across the country. A passing punchline to those grit-tempered warriors and wizards that long for the adventures only an overcrowded studio apartment can handle.
Hey man, come on.
Tom Shanks shame died just as quickly as Splash came out 2 years later and was a huge critical and financial success. But as far as mazes and monsters go, well, let's just say that life sometime is like a 20-sided die.
You never know when you're gonna crit.
And I will say that those are words that should apply to this movie. But unfortunately for everyone, I don't think we're playing the same game. Hi there. First of all, thanks for watching the video, and I hoped you liked it. I tried to make it as funny as possible, but unfortunately, this movie was, it's so fucking stupid and it's boring. I hope you thought it was funny because I stopped laughing at it days ago once I realized that I've seen it 45,000 times. But if you liked it, perhaps you should give me a little follow on the Twitter up there and maybe check out the Facebook. And also, you can take the opportunity to watch some of my other videos that I've made that don't have anything to do with mazes and monsters. Thank the Lord.
They could use some views, you just don't know they're there yet, you piece of shit.
And if you're feeling super generous, or you're just ready to take your first step into a downward descent to becoming my personal stalker, it wouldn't hurt to give you a little click up there, that subscribe button. Just one click, that's all it takes. I just want you to like me. But for now, that's all for me. Once again, thanks for watching, and I've taken up too much of your time as it is, so just back away, mother.